Hi everyone, Matt Bernier here in the Daily Racing Form studios, joined by DRF's national handicapper Mike Watchmaker, taking a look at this weekend's Weekend Warrior for Saturday, October the 21st. We're getting closer and closer to the Breeders' Cup, but before we do, we've got some good racing. A couple races up at Belmont Park, but let's start at Keeneland. It's the Raven Run for 3-year-old fillies, going 7/8 of a mile on the main track. Field of 11 signed on in here, Mike. You're going to go to the far outside with Miss Sunset coming in from California.
I am. Miss Sunset is a California-bred filly who kind of bounced between dirt and turf in the initial stages of her career. But over her last 3 starts, she's really focused on dirt racing, and she's improved dramatically over those 3 starts. I think she has finally found what she wants to do. 2 starts back, she absolutely crushed her field in the Fleet Treat Stakes at Del Mar at Saturday's 7 furlong distance. That was against Calabreds, but last time out she faced Open Company and she won the Surf Stakes also at Del Mar, and she was very, very good that day. Visually very impressive. She won in solid fashion, and I think the 2 most impressive aspects to that performance were, number one, she got a career best buyer figure that puts her absolutely in the mix with this field. And secondly, she showed that she could be very effective by conceding the early lead. Before, it looked like she might be a need-to-lead type, but she gave up the early lead in the Surf Stakes, and yet she still won impressively. I think she's going to draw a really nice trip from the outside here. There's other speed to the inside, but you can see how the race develops, and she's going to be forwardly placed anyway. And I just think she's a comer at the right time. And also, I'm not a big workout guy. I like to see steady workouts, but 2 weeks ago she had a best of 59 workout at Santa Anita that really kind of leaps off the page at me. I just think she's really, really good right now, Miss Sunset is.
You brought up that there's obviously speed drawn to the inside because she's on the far outside, but the number 8 horse, Shalon, she just ran a few weeks ago down at Keeneland against older horses in the TCA. Wasn't embarrassed, only lost by a length and 3/4. She figures to be forwardly placed, highest last out buyer in the field with a 90. Do you like her on the quick turnaround?
Well, yeah, she can absolutely win the race. There's no question about it. And she is coming back in only 2 weeks, like you said. That's a pretty quick turnaround. And usually, I'm a complete fool for horses that, for 3-year-olds who in the fall faced older horses and are now moving back in with straight 3-year-olds. That is a not so subtle class drop. And Shalon, I think, is getting that in this spot. What concerns me about Shalon is, number one, she was only beaten a length and 3/4 in the TCA by Philly's Lucky Charm, who is Breeders' Cup filly and mare sprint bound. But if you watch that race, Philly's Lucky Charm surprisingly wasn't on the early lead. I mean, Philly's Lucky Charm is a speedball, and she came from off the pace to win that race that day. And so Philly's Lucky Charm won that race with a style that's completely alien to her. And I think that maybe that's why it was as close as it really was. It wasn't an especially fast race either, even though Shalon comes into this with a 90 buyer. The other thing is the 7 furlong distance. Now, I know Shalon ran decently, went 4th in the test, 3 starts back going 7 furlongs at Saratoga. She did dispute a fast pace that day, but still, I think it's an open question whether or not she really wants 7 furlongs. And I know Miss Sunset does. I don't know that Shalon does, and I think Shalon's going to take a lot of money in this race.
Top 3 finishers coming out of the Charlestown Oaks are going to come back here and face off. That's Yorkie Poo Princess, Tecolita, as well as Overture. 7/8 of a mile, that's the distance they went last time, although a different configuration. Do any of those 3 do anything for you here?
I don't want any of them. I really have questions about how strong a race the Charlestown Oaks was. And I say that because Yorkie Poo Princess, whose form going into the Charlestown Oaks was absolutely dismal, dismal to the point that she was 75-1 that night, arguably ran the best race. And she was close to a pace that absolutely disintegrated, closer than Tecolita was, and Overture was 8 miles out of it in the early stages, which was probably to her benefit. And yet Yorkie Poo Princess was beaten less than only a little more than a length, finishing second. You could make a case she was best in that race. And if you can make a case that a filly who was 75-1 off dismal races was best in a race, I think you can reasonably question the strength of that race.
There's some familiar faces and names that we're used to. Pinch Hit just came out of that win in the Dogwood at Churchill Downs most recently. Nona Mellor for Todd Pletcher. Anybody else in this field do anything for you, or is it Miss Sunset all the way?
Well, I like Miss Sunset the best. I did take a look at Pinch Hit, on the chance that maybe this race kind of falls apart in the late stages, which it might. But the field that she beat in the Dogwood was pretty weak, and she is facing a much, much tougher brand of horse. But I mean, I think she's the kind of horse you can use underneath in exotics. Nona Mella is a little bit interesting to me in here. She ran well, winning her return 2 starts back at Saratoga, and then last time in the Prioress, she was a soundly beaten second to Vertical Oak, but that was on a wet racetrack, and Vertical Oak, to my way of thinking, is just a freak on a wet racetrack. And so I'm not going to hold that sound defeat against her. And I think maybe Nona Mella, if she can work out some sort of pocket trip in here, can get a piece of this race.
Race number 9 at Keeneland Saturday afternoon. It is the Raven Run for 3-year-old fillies, 7/8 of a mile on the main track. Mike's going to go to the far outside with the number 11 Miss Sunset for Jeff Bondy. Julian Leperoux has the mount. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we dive into a couple of New York bred races up at Belmont Park. We start off with the Sleepy Hollow.